ופלמה.
אז איפה הפסקנו לפני, לדעת?
סגרתי את ה... לא, תנסה להיזכר, כי זה בתוך הכרטיס.
אוקיי, פיין.
קשה לחזור עכשיו לנקודה.
אוקיי.
All right, we'll pick it up here. Fine. Hold on.
Anyway, we were in port. That's all. That's all right.
Right?
כן, כן, זה רק...
You're in port, and Portugal's happy because they've got people working.
People working, right.
And you're building these...
And we're building these shells, which went along very well. Everybody was happy. The workers are happy. Everybody's happy. We're getting lots of free wine. You know, wine was very good and cheap in those days. And and we're learning about Portugal, you know. And the guys are having a good time, you know. You go to Estoril, which is a big gambling area, so you go look, and you meet some women. It was nice. It was very, very... and we didn't have any sense of what should I say, a fear of any kind. Neutral country, you know, and the story is a good story, you know. The Pinky Diamond, we call him, he lived at Kibbutz Ginasar. Learned that subsequently. I got to know him, got to be friendly with him. He comes and tells us, sail now. We said, wait a minute. Not everybody's here. I don't care. He says, sail now. Well, we find where all the guys get on board ship, and by that night, that night, we sail. Subsequently, when I get to Palestine and I get to know him, the British had something called MI5. That's their secret service. They were trying to stop these ships, not just off the coast of Palestine, but in Europe and even in America, which sounded to me quite ludicrous. But the fact is, they put a fortune into this whole idea of stopping the immigration of the Jews to Palestine. Only later I realized how illegal this was in terms of the so-called Balfour Declaration and all the Zionist things, which I knew nothing about, and only subsequently I became a big genius on this, you know. At any rate, we set sail that night, and when I found out subsequently, why did he know to leave? He went to his room, was broken into. So he knew that the police were after him. And he understood then, which we understood later, that the MI5 were looking even in Portugal. Not only Italy and Romania and the east coast of America, but even there. And he was picked up when he got back to the house, to his apartment or room, whatever he rented, and he was put in jail for a few days. But of course he got out in the end. He had fake papers and everything else, but you know, and they had nothing to do with him. What are they going to do? The only thing he did was give employment to a bunch of Portuguese people. Okay, we set sail, and we're pretty well finished whatever we had to do on the shore. They tell us to go to Marseille, and we go to Marseille. That means going through the what is it? The Straits of Gibraltar, which, you know, at the time I said, geez, you know, that's owned by the British, you know, and you make up all these. The truth is, they didn't know who we were. They didn't care who we were. They were probably drunk or who knows what to say. But we went through at night in order to make it fool them. But we didn't fool anybody. You know, they didn't even know we were alive. Like I guess any garrison of soldiers in peacetime. What the hell do they care? And we get to Marseille. Marseille, we unload all this food we've had with us. And I don't know what else there was. I can't tell you. But there was no weapons of any kind. It was, and we set sail, and we're told to leave to get off to the coast of Italy. We get off the coast of Italy, and we hang around there for a day or two. I can't really remember. We go into some little fishing port. And in that fishing port, only later that I know who she was, meet Ada Sereni. Ada Sereni which I found out later, was the most important person in Europe for the Aliyah Bet in Italy. She controlled, she was the Sereni family. They were from the days of Rome. It's not tough, and they knew everyone. And her husband got killed in the war. He was one of these parachuters, and she went there to head up the operation for the Aliyah Bet, which became much bigger, because then later it became weapons. The same group of people that were working in Italy were also obtaining weapons and trying to get them sent to Palestine. But she was operating, and she kept the police at bay, and she kept everything, and we met her there. I didn't say we met her. She was there. I met her. I didn't know I met her. I didn't know who she was, but that she was there. To add a story to all of this, if I can remember the guy, she told me this story later, years later, when we were there, that she had a driver, and his driver was impossible. An Israeli boy, a Palestinian, Jew, and he was terrible. He was speeding around the curves, and she got mad at him, and she said, "Stop it." He says, "Why do you stop it?" He says, "I don't want to be your driver." She said, "What do you want to be?" "I want to be in the Air Force." She got him transferred to be into a training for being in the Air Force. That fella became a guy named Hod. You ever hear the name Hod? Moti Hod. He was her driver, and she sent him to study, and he became the Air Force. I mean, I only heard this later on. I said, this crazy world. But there it was. I don't want to be a driver. I want to be in the Air Force. She got him out in the Air Force. משוגע.
הוא היה מפקד חיל האוויר במלחמת ששת הימים?
בדיוק. Just this Meshuggah world. I learned this from her. I talked to her about it later. I became friendly with her. And trying to find out something. I became friendly with all these people. At any rate, we are told to set sail from there and wait at sea. And we wait at sea, and we get a call on our Dita machine, on our Morse code. Morse code then was in Hebrew and English, combination. So you can imagine how much things got a little bit screwed up. But anyway, we get the Morse code, and we go into a beachhead. Not to a deck, not to a port, into a beachhead, and dock the ship. Throw an anchor out. We tie ourselves to the shore, to some rocks or whatever there is. We put ropes out, and it's the middle of the night, and we wait. And then you wait, and suddenly on the horizon, you see headlights. Now, when we came in, we were told there would be lights for us, and there was lights, and we already imagined it was a Jewish star. I don't think it was, but we imagined it, But slowly, these headlights come down to the shore. We're tied to the shore. We've got ropes. We've got some rubber boats there. And these people get off more and more. And by the time the night is over, we've had over 700 people climbing up the ladders getting into our vessel. That first night was like a miracle. Where the hell did they come from, But that was a part of what was going on the shore.
Offshore of where? You didn't say what country?
Italy.
In Italy.
Oh, in Italy. Still in Italy. We never left Italy. We go out to sea, and we're told to wait. And we come back the next night, a different place, because once again, they're afraid of the British who are controlling it. Don't forget, it's after World War II. Italy was an enemy, and the British are still there as occupiers, or whatever you want to call them. And that second night, we load the next 750 people. We got 1,500 people on board the vessel. And we set sail. Most of the fellows were told not to talk to the people when they came on board ship, because they would be frightened it was English, and they would get some of us who knew Yiddish. That was the big asset, of course. Once we were at sea, it didn't make any difference. And of course, it was the first time we saw these people. They came on board with a rucksack on their back. They didn't have anything else. And they were young, mostly very young. A few old people, but mostly very young. And that became the whole voyage. The whole thing became then a whole new world, a crowded vessel, Wherever you go, you got to be careful because you're bunking into somebody. The first night there was seasickness. I gave my brother's pills away and I told them this is Amerikanische stuff, and because a lot of seasickness is in the mind. And of course, but it was good to know Yiddish. It was also bad because you learned what you could never learn in those days in particular about the Holocaust. Everyone talked to you, and they wanted to talk. They also were so proud of us. You Americans, you came to help us. We never heard of you before. And so the ship had a good spirit to it because here they had these American volunteers, That was a very positive thing for the element there. And all the days of crossing from Italy to Palestine, it was just one long talk. You ask questions, they ask you, they wanted to know who you were. They were younger than us, some were our age, so there was this great, and I've kept some of them as friends still today. It was an amazing kind of thing, and for them it was all the more amazing. For them it was just not to be believed that they had been rescued here. I tell a story which practically no one understood until I started to tell it. When they came up the ladder, they came up in ladders. About 5 years ago, I had a bit of a get-together with one of the survivors. At my house, I'm still friendly with, come over, we sit, we chew coffee, We're sitting there, they come. First question comes from one of the girls who's there. She says, Greenie, my name was Greenie then. She says, why did you give us such a terrible ladder to climb onto the ship with? Because it was shaking. I laughed. Because you must understand, on the Merchant Marine there are ships called a ladder. It's a ladder for safety work, for hardware. Because not every ladder can just go because it's a stiff ladder. You need ladders that were flexible. And those ladders have a name. And I said to her, where is it written in Jewish life that a ladder is important? And they look at me, and one of them said, you're saying in the Bible, the Jacob's ladder? I said, that's right. That ladder is called a Jacob's ladder. They couldn't believe it. I said, yes, the Goyim, 300 years ago, gave it that name. Because the Goyim were sailors. They were religious. And every port there was a church in those days. Also a whorehouse. But you got to mix together everything. And so what was it? They called this ladder a Jacob's ladder. Now, a Jacob's ladder. And I told this, people went crazy. And for me, suddenly I realized that this was another revelation in all this crazy history going on. People rescued. Not just by young American Jewish boys in general, volunteers who don't know nearly what they're doing but know what they're doing, but by a Jacob's ladder.
I want to ask you about a second about these people on the ship, these survivors. Were they all from one particular place, country, camp, area?
No, the whole gamut. There were people who didn't know Yiddish, and I couldn't believe it. They were Hungarians. I says, how the hell can you be Jewish and not know Yiddish? Then I found out about Sfaradim in Israel, but I didn't know those things either. You know how you get mixed up in this country. No, they're from all over, from all kinds of camps, all survivors from all kinds, and nobody with families and nobody with anything.
And what were the stories they were telling you, and what struck you as the most amazing or unbelievable or sad?
First, they had no families. They were singles. That, to me, was the biggest, most difficult thing to try and comprehend. They were alone. And what happened? Your mother, your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle. Nishtu. And they didn't even know exactly where many of them were dead. They didn't, Later, suddenly we call, everybody becomes very smart. There was a lot of research. But that was it. Where were you? They were here, they were there. They tried to do this, every story was kind of frightening. You say, Jesus. Those who were my age or younger, I look at them, I said, what the hell, There goes you. My parents got married and stayed in Europe. If they had been in Europe, God say, where was I? I was up the ladder, you know. So it was, and then of course there were religious people also. So, but the Poles didn't daven with the Hungarians, you know. And I'm looking at this crazy cockamamie, you know. But okay, it's a part of life, you know. You learn a lot of things this way. And then you see also a pregnant woman, but pregnant women were told after 5th month you don't come on board. And one of them even gave birth. Why don't get it? Because we didn't have any medical. We have doctors. One gave birth. The kid came out alive. She called him Balfour for a middle name or some damn thing. And you ask her, why did you do this? Didn't you know it was a risk? She says, I didn't want my child born on the land where all my family's blood is. She told us in Yiddish. It was on the schweren Gebäude. And you, how can you ask a question of a person like that? You know, you can't ask that question. But you did because you don't know what the hell's going on. And there it was. And the kid was born, and that's it, you know.
Did they when they were fed food, was there
They took care of that themselves. They were in groups. There was kibbutz this and chutza this, and they were all met in groups from the camps. In the camps, they had made themselves into groups because they could not have survived. They needed each other. So you had groups of 20, 25 people. Same language, similar background, maybe the same camps, and so they worked to help each other. And they got food and took care of giving it to themselves. They got pishkas, cans of food, and they took care of that themselves. We didn't do anything with that. We had nothing to do with it. That was their operation.
You're all sailing towards Palestine. You know the British are waiting for you. What's the talk on board? Are we going to make it? How are we going to make it?
Oh, we're going to
What's
make it. We know we're going to make it. We, the sailors. And they know they're not going to make it. No, you're not going to make it. That was it. They know we're not going to. They said, but we'll get there. We'll get to Palestine. That's it. That's all. You see, it didn't make any difference to them if we were going to go into the country or we're going to go to a camp or anything else. We're going to get there. They knew they were going to get deported. That was no fear for them. They knew, but it didn't make any difference. They're nearly there. And we, big sailor, you know, we'll make it, we'll get you, and we'll fool them, you know. Suddenly, when the airplane comes over and you got these destroyer escorts all over, they were crazy. Where? Yeah. But they were very, very, I would say, very practical in their thinking. They knew what's going to happen, but they didn't. That was not important. We're leaving Europe. We're getting to Palestine. We're going to make it all the way someday.
Did anybody die on board?
No. Nobody died. We as sailors could have died because it was all so ridiculous. It was also ludicrous, the whole thing. You think of it. And then what was even crazier, you need toilets, yes? On the deck, on one side and on the other side, we put up a wooden, sort of like a wooden wall. We made a trough. We put a big piece of wood on it, made holes in it with sandpaper, so you shouldn't get this up your ass. And the women on one side, the men on one side, and they'd go in, and I don't know, 8 or 10 seats, like so-called, right into the ocean. Clean. I mean, what could be cleaner? And the water came from down in the sea. You had a little pump, the water was being pumped up, and she was going out. I said, well, we're ingenious. I mean, you think of it. 1,500 people. And they're big cockers, you know, it's not exactly... And there was plenty of vomiting. Oh, Jesus, plenty of vomiting. But that wasn't they was wherever. But they cleaned up. They overall, look, nobody got sick, nobody died.
How many days sailing?
You know, I don't even know. But I would guess, if I remember, it was over 8 days, I think. Over a Shabbat, yeah. Over a Shabbat, yeah. But the exact number, funny, I never even looked into it. You know, it's a good question. I have to look into it. I must have it someplace written.
Is the name of the ship been changed?
No, the name of the ship only got changed twice, believe it or not. That's why this kid's name is Balfour, because our name was going to be Balfour. That was the 2 days before. And we started making the name Balfour. Then as we come into port, they changed it to the Hatikva. Oh, we had to change it, Hatikva.
Now you sailed to port. You said February 28th, 1947.
That's right. I only know this now, the date, which I never know anyway. It's because I was looking something up for, for advertising. I do advertising for our publishing house. And I'm looking through different, and suddenly I see, Jesus, in the newspaper, the 28th of February, in the Jerusalem, Palestine Post, it tells about this ship being captured, the Hatikva. I said, Jesus, look at that. And that's today. So tomorrow in the paper, I'm saying it's going to be a part of the ad. But it just the other day, because I keep trying to think up in terms of advertising, something you should have historical importance. I feel and historical for us, for instance, on what's his name's book, on the Begin Sadat book, I use a quotation from Begin, in which he writes a letter to Sadat, in which he tells him, we never talked about Jerusalem, we never discussed borders. He writes a letter to him. See, I put that into the ads. Oh, okay, Sakah at some point now, and then we'll come again. I can.
How much more time do you want? Can you give me?
10 minutes.
10 minutes more.
אוקיי.
Okay.
נחזור אחר כך.
כן.
Yeah, okay.
Fine,
yeah,
that's fine.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Let me just back you up in the water
Go ahead,
just
go
a
ahead.
little bit.
Yeah, okay.
You're sailing, however long, you said about a week, 8 days. You're coming towards
Haifa.
Haifa. You see Haifa in the distance.
No, we first see airplanes. Airplanes flying overhead, and the next morning we have destroyer escorts. We still haven't seen Haifa. We have destroyer escorts. We're probably about 150 miles off or something like, I don't know. And we have the 3 destroyer escorts going around the vessel, and we're sailing straight ahead. They don't stop us. They call out to us. They tell you to, don't be nice. We'll be nice to you. You shouldn't try and do anything of any nature. We'll bring you into the Haifa port. And they're very, very congenial. And by the time the day is getting to the end, we're practically, then suddenly, I would say late in the afternoon, we suddenly see Haifa. And everybody is very excited, you can imagine. The truth is, go back a minute, when the first British ships came, we had everybody down below decks because we said we're going to fool them. But by the time these 2 things came around, we realized they know what we are. So we tell the people, okay, open the hatches and let the fresh air in. It's pretty hot down there. They get up and they come out, and they can't believe it. They run to one side of the ship, they run to the other, and the ship starts rocking back and forth, But they were shocked by what it all. At any rate, we're sailing and sailing. We're getting closer and closer. And the British tell us to give up, not to make any difficulty. The people decide we should keep going. We gotta, don't stop. Okay. Now at this point, they're really the bosses more than us. It's their lives, not, and in a way, we still think we're foreigners, we're Americans, we're still not into it all, except that we're different. So they say, we'll sail, so what? Well, the British come alongside and they attack us. The Jews start fighting back, and they jump on board our ship, and they got clubs and sticks, and they shoot tear gas at us, and it's pandemonium. But of course, they win. There's no problem there. That the Jews fought, to me, kind of I look at it as a foolish thing at the time, but I understood the desire to be able to do something. And as nightfall comes, they've taken over our vessel, and they schlep us into Haifa Harbor, because they've taken over the engine room, they've taken over the steering room, And we, as young sailors, we don't let them know we're dressed like all the other people, and they tell us to melt into the crowd and go with the crowd. Okay, you go with the crowd. We don't know what the penalty is for being caught. We don't, it's a very kind of a foolish situation. We get off the vessel, we get into Haifa Harbor. As we're pulling in, these Jews start singing Hatikva. Now, in those days, nobody sang Hatikva that I knew of. I didn't know anybody. I knew we sang Adon Olam, you know, or Ein Kalaheinu, or, you know, but Hatikva wasn't exactly part of. In fact, there were a lot of good Christian songs I knew from school. But okay, that was it. That was it. So they're singing Hatikva. Very good, very nice. Middle of the night, as we're coming into Haifa, very dramatic. I mean, you know, look at these people. Look what they're singing, you know, singing the national anthem of their own, you know. Okay. They unload us from the vessel. They take us onto another big, beautiful ship. It's a transport. And they take us, all 15 on one vessel, to Cyprus. We know it's to Cyprus, but we don't know what it's all about. When we get off that night, they load us into trucks, maybe even buses, I don't remember. I think it was all trucks, but we all get, and they drive us. You get wherever you get, you walk out, you go in, you don't know, it's night. And you lay down and go to sleep. You know, you're tired. We've been up maybe for 2-3 days already, running the ship, talking to the people, and trying to make some sense out of what the hell's going on. When you wake up in the morning, you're behind barbed wire. You know, 2 rows of barbed wire. There's a British soldier out there standing on one of those big high ladders. And, you know, for Americans, I mean, I know for me, I said, this is ridiculous. What are these guys doing to us? You know, what the hell are we doing here? Not only me, but all of us. Because there's tons of people walking around. All kinds of people, Jews all over the place, you know, and dressed in rags, semi-dressed, you know. And I remember the first time you joined a group from your ship, and I joined this group called Yosef Kaplan Kibbutz, they called themselves. Well, Hashem Matzayah, which I learned about later, you know. And we sit on the ground and they put out food for us to have breakfast. Whatever there was, I don't know what there was there, I can't remember. But there was food, so you eat. It was the last time they put out food. After that, they gave us what your portion was. Because, you know, you're hungry, you eat. It was, to me, it was only the next day that I suddenly realized, boy, we screwed up. We ate everybody's food for breakfast, you know. But it was all inadvertent. Okay. And there we were for several months. You know, we didn't get out. We got out later. We did things there. They had us, the Haganah had us, a few of us, not most of the people didn't, but a few of us were chosen, you know, to do certain things. I, together with 2 other from our crew and another non-crew member, we were digging a tunnel under the double rows of barbed wire to get out of the camp. We then got involved in making galignite. Galignite is an explosive, putting it into tubes and putting it into, which we were going to use for blowing up something. I didn't know for what, but that's... the digging of a tunnel was a very crazy thing, because when you think of it, when you dig, earth comes up. So we put it on the floor. The floor starts to get very high. The tent is not high enough, you know, you suddenly... So we got gunny sacks, we filled it up with the stuff, and we go around, we put it into the outhouses. They go all over the place, outhouses, you know. You know, you sat 10 in a row, you know, and we started to fill up the outhouses. I mean, it was crazy, but there we were. That's what we were doing. We never used the tunnel. They did. The Haganah people, Palmacha, Palyam, whoever it was. Then they put us on this other operation of the galignite, which was poisonous in the smell. It was okay. And the end result is that our group, most of us got out together under fake names. We had new names. Every time you had a new name, they always had papers. They always could make. You learned later that some of the best artists were captured by the British. They were Jews, like Shmuley Katz. He was on a ship called the Knesset Israel. Well, from Israel, Naftali Bezem was sent to be a teacher. And these guys forged papers. You always had a different name. I had a number of different names along the way.
But didn't you have a different name when you left Baltimore?
No, I went on my own name leaving Baltimore.
Ah.
When I left from Italy, then I had a different name. See, that's leaving America, you had your own name, but with fake papers. Then the name changing started to come about. Okay, so you did the name changing. I mean, what the hell? You know, I think what you find is, first of all, it's good to be young. And when things get very going along, you go along, you know, you're a part of it. You don't run over, geez, look at this, look what's going on, you know, and you think of it. Boy, we're loading the Galignite. Well, what the hell are we going to do with this? You know, we're digging a tunnel to get out. Gee, what do we, you know, and all these things, they're very, very dramatic. And you know now you're really going to defy the British. You're going to get even with them in some way, and so you get into the swing of things. And I think also you begin to forget your fears of what's going to happen to you. Will you go to jail? Will you get caught? I think you begin to forget all about it. By the way, I must tell you a story to go back. 2 guys jumped off our ship to try and swim ashore when we got close. One fella, he swam and got ashore. The British picked him up there. The British policeman, he says, you know, who are you? He gave a name. What was the name? He had a brother, American, studying at the Technion. He gave his brother's name. He had made up with his brother. The Technion, he went to see the president. This is, do you have a student by that name? Oh, sure we do. Who can identify him? Oh, we'll send you somebody to identify him. The brother gets sent to go identify the brother. Oh, he got away with it. He didn't go to Cyprus. The other fella who jumped over the side, he got undressed because he wanted to swim fast. They had British patrol boats going around. They picked him up, and he was in the middle of the boat. They picked him up there, and he's standing there bare-ass naked. And the officer on the vessel says, search him. You know, these idiots, these
How do you know that?
He went to Cyprus.
How do you know they said search him?
Because he told me when I saw him later, I said, what happened to you? He says, they wanted to search me. So, you know, it's a...
So how long, Sachakol, how long were you on Cyprus?
I guess nearly 3 months. I'm not sure. I can look it up and see. But I would guess.
From then to
2 to 3
February?
months. And February, March, April. Yeah. Should have been 3 months. Yeah. So...
All right, tough. So we'll call a Hafsakah here.
You know, I was active in public life, head of Ole America and all kinds of. As a part of the director of Ole America, we had a meeting with Ben Gurion one day. Private meeting, a bunch of us sitting and talking, not in an office, at his home. And he goes around the room asking everybody where they came from, who they are, you know. And me, I tell him, I'm coming, Hannah, I'm coming. I say, Ani, Bati, עם עלייה ב' ו-47. He looks at me, I'm a young man. He says, לא יאומן. I don't believe it. אז מה אתה אומר? אני יודע. הייתי מלאך באמריקה, התנדבתי, הגעתי, זה. He says, אני חשבתי עלייה שנייה. How's that?
Very good.
And church. Because then when I told him a little more, he really didn't know about us. We were kind of an unknown element. People brought ships. Who did they talk about? This guy, what the hell's his name, who wrote all the poems on the war? Kapitan. No. There's the poet, what's his name? What the hell's his name? Jesus. Alterman. And who did he write about? Capitan is about the...
אני מקליט את זה, אני מקליט.
Oh, the captain is the Italian captain of a ship. And that became kind of the symbol of Aliyah Bet, the captain. Which had nothing to do. He never went to Cyprus, to prison like we went. He had nothing. And I was so aggravated about all this. It really nauseated me.
That history was being distorted.
Well, it was being misled, not deliberately. It was because nobody knew. Nobody knew. So I started to do research on it all. And I kept going and doing more. And I said, geez, this is fascinating. Look what I'm learning, you know. So I put all these facts together. And of course I learned more facts since I wrote the first. This is the third edition I've done, which I keep changing things and adding things. So.
No, it is fascinating.
Yeah, no, you can just imagine. Here I am. But that with Ben Gurion, that was the killer for me. Only later, and I can't tell that story in English because nobody understands it. You see, only in Israeli understands.
Right.
Oh, Shafti Aliyah Shniya, Aliyah Shniya. You know what I'm saying?